Hi guys, my name's Rod White, Olympic gold medalist from 1996, bronze medalist in 2000 in archery, and professional bow hunter and target archer. And today we're going to talk a little bit about why you should pick a certain arrow for the certain game that you're hunting. We're going to talk about the spines within that arrow selection. And we're going to talk about the aerodynamics with the bow and how that relationship is affected by choosing the right spine so that you get the best results possible for the most accurate arrow that you can with the best penetration. For today's shoot, we're going to be looking at the Victory brand of arrows, and within Victory there are several different models. The model that you choose should be based on the animals you're hunting. If you're hunting elk, for example, or dangerous big game in Africa, you're going to choose a really heavy arrow like this Extortion. This Extortion with a broadhead weighs 532 grains. Because we're focused on whitetail primarily, today we're going to be talking about a Victory VAP. It's a micro diameter, 0.166 diameter arrow. It's a great all-around arrow. It's really good for whitetails because whether you're hunting out west or whether you're hunting in the Midwest, it's got a low profile so wind won't affect it as much, and it's got great penetration. There are three different spines that we're going to be looking at today. When you look at the arrow chart and you look at my particular bow poundage and my draw length, it'll give you a general idea of a selection of what arrow spine you should choose. However, those charts aren't perfect because every bow shoots an arrow slightly different than another bow. There's different speeds that are generated by different bows, different draw weights, different poundages, all make a difference in which arrow is the right arrow to select for you. So because of that, we're going to be using a VAP 300, a 350, and we're going to be using a 400. The numbers that you see on the arrows, the 300, the 350, and the 400, all relate to the static spine of the arrow. The way we measure static spine is by placing an arrow between two posts and hanging a weight off it. I believe it's 880 grams. And however much that arrow bends or flexes is where we get the deflection number. That's what's assigned to the arrow value itself, or the arrow spine. However, that doesn't directly translate always into dynamic spine, which is extremely important, and that's what we're really after. So we've got three different sizes here. We've got a 300, a 350, and a 400. We're going to shoot each one of these arrows through paper so that we can show you how it comes out of the bow slightly differently each way. That dynamic spine, finding the right dynamic spine that matches your bow, is essential to broadhead flight. Where dynamic spine really comes into play is whether you're shooting a fixed blade or whether you're shooting a mechanical style broadhead. With fixed blades, obviously you have more surface area on the front of the arrow versus a mechanical broadhead where most of the blades are contained within the ferrule itself or within the point itself. Ideally, a well-tuned bow is going to have an arrow flying pretty much in a straight line towards the target. When you add a broadhead to the front of your arrow, that can cause some planing issues. By that I mean, when you shoot an arrow that is not tuned with your bow, where maybe say your nocking point is set too high or maybe your rest is in too far, when you fire that arrow, the front of the arrow is going to take its own direction with the back of the arrow following it. And when you put a blade on the front of an arrow, it's going to magnify that effect quite a bit. There's a lot of states out there that don't allow the use of mechanical broadheads, and because of that, fixed blades are still the only option that a lot of us have, especially in the western states. Now we're going to set up a target, and we're going to shoot through a piece of paper so that you can see how the arrow is coming out of the bow and how the spine is actually relating to the flight of the arrow coming out of the bow in this specific combination. Most of the things we're going to show you throughout this video series don't require a lot of expensive equipment. We built our own paper tuner here out of a piece of cardboard box and some packaging paper that we just taped onto the box. One thing you want to keep in mind whenever you're building a paper tuner, when you're shooting through paper, is that make sure that your paper tuner is far enough away from the target so that your arrow can pass cleanly through there without being affected by the arrow actually hitting the target. You're also going to want to start up close with your paper tears so that you can see exactly what that arrow is doing as soon as it comes out of the bow. To begin with, you're going to want to shoot at a distance of about 2 to 3 yards at most from the target. Again, you want to make sure that arrow is outside of the bow before it enters the paper. The closer you are to the target, the better you're going to have an understanding of what's happening whenever that arrow leaves the bow, and then you can make your tuning adjustments from there. Now I'm going to mark on the paper just as a reference. This was the 400. I'm going to shoot the 350 and the 300. Now I'm going to shoot the 350. I'm going to mark this one as the 350. Now we're going to shoot the 300. So when you look at these tears, you can see that as I got stiffer with the arrow, the tear got worse to the left, meaning that when that arrow is coming out of the bow, it's coming out tail left. If there were a broadhead on here, with each one of these shots, this one actually came out tear low. When you shoot one with a broadhead, because it's already coming out at an angle like this, it's naturally going to want to plane off to the right a lot more. So that's why we shoot all three spines, and it gives you a fairly certain idea of what's happening dynamically when the arrow is coming out of the bow. It's super important that we just start with the one that gives us the best tear. And this one has a vertical tear. This is a pretty easy solution. I'm just going to move my nocking point up some, which will bring this point down closer to the tear. And then once we get a bullet hole, which may take a few shots, that's what we're going to roll with for our arrow. And then we're going to begin the fine tuning process. So what we're going to do here is shoot 2 field points and then 2 arrows with the broadheads on them. Both 2 different spines, again representing with the 300, which had a left tear. We'll put a broadhead on it after we shoot the field point, and the same with 400 spine arrow, which is the one that shot the best hole through the paper. So first we're going to shoot the 400 spine arrow with a field point on it, the center of the target. Then we're going to shoot a field point on the other arrow, which is a 300 spine arrow, aiming at the exact same point. And you can see both of those arrows impacted pretty much in the same spot. Now we'll shoot the broadheads, and we'll start with that 400 spine. This is the one that was making the good hole through the paper again. Now we're going to shoot the other arrow, which is the 300 spine. This is the one that was making a tail left tear coming out of the bow. And again, the blades on the front end should take over immediately coming out of the bow. With that left tear, it's going to want to plane off to the right. Even though the vanes correct the flight, we still have an arrow that wants to plane to the right. So you can see the fixed blade broadhead right here. You can see the triangle from the blades. And these are 2 field points. These are 2 different spines, a 300 and a 400, and this is the 400 spine. The arrow spine that flew the best through the paper or made the best hole was this 400, and that's the one we're going to tune with. The reason we don't use the 300 is because that tail left tear that's coming out of there, the blades on the front of the arrow are steering that arrow. As soon as it comes out with the tail left tear, the arrow wants to follow the blades banking to the right. So when I push this back through here, and this is a solid foam target, so it really can't affect the way I'm pushing this back through here, but you can see, don't get cut here, the angle difference. This one's coming in at an angle to the right, and these 3 arrows are in there straight. So again, starting with the best tear to begin with, that's going to be the best arrow to work with. And it'll save you a lot less hassle, save you a lot of time tuning in your broadheads. So remember, when you're choosing the arrow, you're going to first pick the arrow that fits your application the best. Second, you're going to pick your spine. And in this scenario, we shot 3 different spines. Even though the charts may tell you that one spine is perfect for your bow, every bow is different. Every bow runs at a different speed, different draw lengths. There's a lot of factors that come into play, and that's why we choose the 3 different spines to work with, one above and one below the recommended spine, to find out which one works best for us.